Okay, well, hey everyone. I'm Brandy Beaker, and I am the TDM coordinator for Orange County's Commuter Options program. And welcome to Mission Impossible Cybersecurity Edition. This is this is Go Triangle's latest offering in the Mission Impossible web series. These are hour-long virtual discussions where the goal is to connect people in the triangle with experts that they care about. So we bring subject matter experts from our community to talk about problems that we face every day, and particularly while we're working from home. Of course, our goal in working in transportation demand management is to reduce the number of single occupancy vehicles on the road. And of course, telework does a great job of that. So we've been really focusing on that lately. Again, my name is Brandy Beaker, transportation demand management for Orange County. And we've already gone through talking about your microphones are muted, but if you've got any questions, just send them in chat, and we are going to have a Q&A afterwards. And I'm going to introduce Kim Johnson, Go Triangle. She has worked with them for 11 years, and she works with employers and property managers in Wake County to promote sustainable transportation. And she is going to provide a quick overview of the regional Go Triangle Transportation Demand Program. You ready, Kim?
Yes, I am.
All right.
So when I talk about Go Triangle, I'm talking about more than the big green buses that you see riding around the region. I'm really talking about our partners. And our partners include representatives from many of the local municipalities and the colleges and universities in the area. And we're all joined together with the goal of reducing the number of single occupancy vehicles that are traveling on the roads in the Triangle. We're grant funded, so all of our consultative services and educational offerings are free to employers, to students, community organizations, and property managers in the region. The next slide, please. Our employer services program aim to help organizations improve and create commuter programming to attract and retain top talent. So feel free to reach out to us, and we'll make sure that we connect you with the right person that services your area so that you can get the assistance that you need. Like Brandy mentioned earlier, the modes of transport that we promote are carpooling, vanpooling, biking, walking, transportation, and telework as well. So we also have supportive programming, such as our emergency ride home program. It is a program where you can get a ride home. We will provide a taxi for you on days that you use a smart commute to get into work, and something happens. You have an unscheduled overtime or just an emergency. We have more information on the policy around that on our website, but it's meant to be kind of like security to encourage you to utilize the smart commuting and to leave your car home. That what if is kind of answered with that emergency ride home program. The other, another one of these supportive services, our statewide ride matching program, and you can use it to search for neighbors and that work near you to share a ride into work. So it would be someone that's similar schedule as well. And so one of the last supportive programming that I will mention is our Go Parks program. And it is an incentive program. Participants in this program track their trips either through the website or on the mobile app. And each month they earn points based on the number of trips that they track, and they accumulate those points, and at the end of the month they're able to use them for different drawings. And we have prizes. The next slide. We have prizes online that we give away. We give away up to 100 in gift cards and event tickets every month. We have just begun to include telework in these commute trips that you can track to earn points since the stay-at-home orders were issued. So if you've not tried Go Parks, you should definitely sign up for Share the Right NC and try it, because now is perfect, especially with everyone working from home. If you're wanting to know where you can find that information, it's on our website at gotriangle.org, or you can just simply go to sharetherightenc.org. So next, I'd like to introduce our featured speaker, Robert Reynolds, and he is the Chief Information Officer for the town of Chapel Hill, with over 25 years, really, really impressive credentials from the U.S. Navy to the Secret Service. Seriously, y'all, we thought he would be the perfect expert to join us on this maiden possible voyage. So, Robert, thank you.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
You can.
Okay, so I hope everyone's doing well. And today I thought the appropriate topic would probably be cybersecurity in a remote workplace, and how to stay safe online when working remotely. Next slide, please. A little bit about me. I've been with the town for about 16 years. I've got 25 years experience. As Kim said, I served in the Navy. All my views and opinions are my own and not of my employer. Just want to put that out there, a little legalese, right? But it's enough about me. I want to talk about my passion, and that's IT security. So let's get started. We could go to the next slide. Today, what we're going to cover is we're going to talk about working in a new normal. So what is the new normal for a lot of people that's working in our homes? Like, if you could see, like I could see all the Zoom windows here. I see everybody working at home and no longer in the office. We'll talk about the top 3 threats that organizations face today. Who are behind these attacks? That's always an interesting thing, because it's not always who you think it would be. And then we'll have a little open discussion, talk about how we can protect ourselves and also our organizations, right? We definitely don't want to bring any type of malware back into our corporate networks and disrupt all of our remote workers. Next slide, please. Okay, so working from home, the new normal. So it seems like with the advent of COVID-19, many employees found themselves working from home as a part of this so-called remote workforce. For many employees, shifts seem to happen very quickly. I know at least that was my experience, and many other people who I've talked to. While this enabled many organizations to continue operations to some degree, extending the workforce past the organization's boundaries presented challenges for IT departments all over the world. So it wasn't even limited to like one region or one country. It seems like one day we were in the office at our desk and, working away, and we knew we had this COVID thing going on. And then it seems like the next day, everybody was now working from home. So IT really had to scramble and make that work for everyone, so that governments could provide essential services, police departments could continue operations. So it was definitely challenging, and hopefully, we'll next time, if we ever have a disruptive event like this in the future, I think there's a lot of lessons that we'll all learn out of this event. So it seems like I was saying that it was one day we're in our office, the next day we're doing business out of our home. So now our environment, our offices become our bedrooms, our dining rooms, our kitchen table. So practicing good hygiene is extremely important at home, even as if we were in our office. It's even more important from home. Cyber criminals are now actively targeting remote workers with the goal of gaining access to the corporate network. Most of these attacks will come in the form of email. Email is probably the most significant threat that face organizations today. It's the only real method that the attacker has that's going to may be successful in compromising your account or stealing your credentials. So these emails, we all see them. We see them come through with a fake invoice or a click here for Office 365, or your account's about ready to get shut down. Click here. Their hope is to entice you to click that. If you click it, you'll either be sent to a page that asks you to log in, asks you for your social security number, or redirects you to a malicious website where you don't have to do anything. The code on that site will actually run and infect your computer. So these are the things that we're up against, and that make IT people like myself and others sleep with one eye open at night, because it's very hard to mitigate these threats normally, right? We have all the firewalls and all the security in place and things like that, but now we've extended our networks out into people's homes, right? So while we are secure, we have a larger threat surface that we need to be concerned about. So let's look at the top 3 cyber threats that we face today. Next slide, please. So this threat here is probably, and I know we've all heard about this recently with several municipalities in our area being affected. Ransomware is at the top of the list when it comes to cybersecurity threats. In this type of attack, a criminal will entice you to click a link, open an attachment, or you'll get directed to some type of web page that will run malicious code and infect your computer. Once that malware is executed, what will happen is the malware will start to encrypt all the files on your computer. And then as it's doing that, it's also encrypting everything that your computer is connected to. So if you're connected to your corporate network, it starts to encrypt the servers on that network and the file shares and things like that. Everything becomes completely unusable. Every file you click on won't be able to open. So essentially, you're completely out of business. The attacker will then leave a message on your screen, similar to what you see on the slide there. But it'll also give you instructions on how to pay them the ransom, right? They use Bitcoin for this. And for those that are not familiar with Bitcoin, Bitcoin is a type of digital currency that's not traceable at all. So until they get this payment, they will not give you the decryption keys so you can unlock your data. So ransomware has grown significantly over the last few years. And this is largely due to the success rate of the attack in getting victims to pay the ransom. Criminals have been targeting local governments in the last few years. And actually, I did some research on this. In 2019, there were over 140 local governments throughout the country that fell victim to this type of attack. Let's think about that for a second. And that was in a 10-month period in 2019. So if we put that in its perspective, proper perspective, that's about 14 attacks per month that was successful on a local government, that's just incredible. So many of these governments lost data or were unable to operate their computers and provide services to citizens for over a month or more. In fact, Trinity Metro, which is located in Texas, fell victim to a ransomware attack, I believe earlier this year. Trinity Metro is a transit agency that operates bus and commuter rail transportation in Fort Worth. Other attacks in Texas included the Texas Department of Transportation, and probably one of the most significant that we've ever seen was a coordinated attack in Texas that affected 22 small towns, local governments in Texas at the same time, that's just unheard of. The criminals keep doing this because it's very profitable. So in last year, in one attack in Riviera Beach, the city council voted to pay the ransom, which is one of the things that the FBI will always say, you shouldn't pay the ransom because, you enabled a criminal. and I guess I could see that the argument could be made both ways. With city council's expectation was, let's get this data back. We can't restore from backup. Let's just pay the ransom and go from there. I could also see the FBI standpoint, but in any event, the Riviera Beach paid the criminal $600,000 to go ahead and restore the data, and I think they were largely successful. But it's important to note that even though you paid a ransom, you are dealing with criminals. You may not get that key to unlock your data. So as we can see, ransomware attacks can be highly disruptive for the victims, but also highly profitable for the criminal, making this type of attack very popular in the cyber criminal world. Again, I'm going to go back to it again. These attacks will arrive in your mailbox. This is how they begin. They can come in other ways by you searching, by you going to some type of website that may be infected, or clicking on a link in social media, but the majority of these attacks are delivered via email. Recently with COVID, I've seen a lot of COVID-related emails that are attempting to make people click and infect your computer. So the criminal will always look for current events, topics of interest, or even seasonal events like taxes, or if there's a hurricane. They'll use all this types of methods in order to get you to pique your interest, make you click, open that attachment, click that link. So I think the golden rule here is, if you don't know the sender, or if you're not expecting the email, even if you do know the sender, best thing to do is don't click the attachment, don't open don't click the link, call the sender if possible. It goes back to that trust but verify. And next slide, please. Okay, so phishing. Phishing is another one. This one's a little different. It's not as, I don't want to say it's not as severe as the other. The other one is very damaging, but this can be too. This gets the criminal into your account and then eventually into the network, and can lead to a ransomware attack. But these are very popular. Phishing attacks are characterized by email that is sent to you that, again, entices you to click on a link. And the sender typically masquerades as an organization or some other trusted source that you would feel comfortable clicking on that link or attachment. We see a lot today, a lot of emails are geared to Office 365. A lot of corporations and local governments have moved to Office 365. So as you can see in the slide there, that's one on the very top that we see a lot. Office 365. Click here, reset your password. It's very easy to get tripped up by that. The other ones that we also see are Netflix. Almost everyone has Netflix, right? Or a package that UPS has tried to deliver. Click here, IRS, things like that. Scrutinize these messages. Really look at them. Typically, you're going to find misspellings in the names of the words. And again, I go back to it. If you don't, or you're not expecting it, don't click on it. The IRS is never going to contact you by email. And if Netflix does, you could always call them on the phone to make sure it's them. But the last thing you want to do is enter any type of information in there, even if it's just a password. That password could be, what gets the criminal into your network, your government or your corporation. So these attacks are very sophisticated, and sometimes they are very, very hard to tell from what a real company would send you. So, like, for example, is that Netflix one there. Any correspondence from Netflix and email, I went back and I matched them up, and it's almost identical. Anyone could fall for a trick like that. So never click. Always respond. And the other thing is, never, when you go to verify these things, never email the sender. I have seen in real time people do this, and it was the actual criminal that was responding. in a conversation back and forth. And it was extremely convincing to the point where they almost got this person to click. So never use email to respond. Never click if you don't know the person or not expecting it. Always call. And again, just verify that source before doing anything. Next slide, please. Okay, so now this one here is one that we've been seeing more of, and this is what they call a BEC attack, which is a business email compromise attack. This one has been very damaging for a lot of people, and also there's been several local governments that have fell victim to this. It's a financial attack. The criminals will send the email in to HR or accounts payable and make a legitimate request. So that the request may be an employee that wants to make a direct deposit change, and they'll go ahead and they'll include, I even seen these requests come in with the actual form of the municipality completely filled out, and unfortunately it was processed. The only problem was it was not the employee that submitted it. The other things we see are invoices where an invoice is sent from a company, or what it looks like was the real company, to accounts payable. Invoice is past due, please remit, or your last payment of this invoice wasn't able to be processed, please resubmit, and they give them, you know, a different account number or some other way to pay, and those have been successful in the past. So this would be my number 3 threat that's out there that's significant. All of these attacks that I've shown you are significant in the fact that they have tricked hundreds of, if not thousands of people, and the criminals are cashing in upwards of, you know, hundreds of thousands of dollars. So it makes you wonder when we talk about this kind of stuff, you know, who really is behind these attacks? Is it, you know, like, if you remember those movies in the 80s, you know, like the hacking movies, is it that one kid in the basement, you know, doing this stuff, or is it something larger, right? So I think it's a little bit of both. There are independent cyber criminals out there that do this for profit, but a lot of these attacks are run by organized crime, and that's organized crime here in the United States, organized crime in China, nation state attacks, and also Russian mafia is very active in these type of attacks. It's extremely profitable, and the attribution is almost impossible. So you could be a criminal sitting at your computer, hacking away and making hundreds of thousands of dollars. And there really is not a good way for someone to catch you. It's almost impossible with the methods and tactics they use to trace that back to them. All they do is close their lid of their laptop and walk away, and it's like walking into the smoke. I mean, they're gone. You'll never find these people in most cases. There have been significant arrests by the FBI, but in large part, it's really difficult to do. And with the business email compromise attacks in 2019, there were over 24,000 of these attacks, and that's in the United States alone. So it's estimated that over $26 billion have been paid to criminals with BEC attacks over the last 3 years. So as profitable as that is, these attacks are not going to go away soon. They're just going to continue, and it's just up to us to, you know, remain hyper vigilant and scrutinize everything. I'd rather not answer an email and call and make sure than just you know, answer it thinking I may know that person. But they also, you know, a lot of times rely on us being busy. You know, you're busy, you're trying to do 3 things at the same time. This email comes in, oh, I know that person. And you wind up becoming, you know, the latest victim. The bad part in all this is criminals now know everybody's working at home. Everybody's working at home. they're looking for a way into the corporate network, and they think, by you working at home, you may have your laptop that's connected to your VPN also connected to your home network, right? So if they could compromise your home network, then they could use that door into your house to jump over to your corporate network. So it's also important to not only practice the good cyber hygiene on your in your work computer, but also on your home network as well. Okay, next slide, please. But that leads us to protecting ourselves, right? And how we can do that. And I always say that cybersecurity is everyone's responsibility. So we all need to work together. IT does a great job with all this, but it's kind of, I always liken it as neighborhood watch type of thing, right? If you see something, say something. So I don't expect everyone to be, an IT security person, but if you see like, perfect example would be using your Wi-Fi at home, right? That's fine. If you go to Starbucks and you want to connect to work and you want to do something, I would not suggest that. Even though you're using a VPN, I would not suggest using any type of public Wi-Fi connection, because there are others around you on that same network connection, and you don't want to get your computer compromised. Once they get in, you won't even know. And now that machine is compromised, and from there, they could get into your corporate network. Another thing to keep in mind is your home router or your wireless. You want to keep that patched and up to date. And most of those you can connect to and just click a button, update now, and it'll update with the latest patches. Some of them even do it by themselves if they're configured that way. Passwords is another thing, right? Make sure your passwords are at least, I like a password that's 20 characters or more. And I know that sounds crazy. A lot of people say, I'll never remember that. I can't remember a 5-character password. But if you make a password and make it more of a passphrase, something that's important to you, something that means something to you, but switch out a few of those letters in there with symbols or numbers, and it makes it a lot easier to remember. Some people even use passages of books. They'll pick a book, their favorite book, they'll go to page 99, pick a sentence and use that. And then, like I said, transpose some of those numbers into letters. And then you have a 20 character password that's really hard to crack. Passwords, hackers have tools that could, crack these passwords, but the longer they are and the more complex they are with symbols, it increases the amount of time that it takes for them to go ahead and crack it. And for the criminal, they're in this to make money, so that's going to take too long. They're not going to waste their time with that. They're going to go look for the low-hanging fruit. So don't be the low-hanging fruit. Get a nice long password, long and strong, at least 20 characters, and you should be good. And never use the same password for everything, like your banking. It's okay to make variations, but those variations shouldn't be guessable. But again, never use the same. Always keep them long and strong. Now, working on your laptop that you got from work at home, that opens up different questions or concerns on how we should treat that laptop. Your IT department, I'm sure, has the security in place, and they're doing their thing to make sure that your machine is protected. But there are things that you can do, and that they'll probably be very thankful for. Some of those things are, if you see, on many machines, you'll get a pop-up window that says Windows updates are ready to be installed. Shall I do this now, or do you want to postpone? Most everybody, including myself, will hit postpone because we're so busy. We've got 50 tabs open. I can't do that now. If I do that now, I'm never going to get these tabs back. And I think we all know how that ends, right? But if you update, keep the machine updated as best you can when you do see that. Some organizations will force the update, so you won't have a choice. But if you do have the choice, try to do that sooner than later, so that you get those patches installed on the machine, and the machine is less vulnerable. Same thing with antivirus. In the lower right-hand corner, you probably notice you have little icons, and you may even know the type of antivirus you have. If you take your mouse and you hover over it, you could see when it was last updated. Or if you see an X in that spot, check it out, see what it is. If the antivirus needs to be updated, let someone in IT know so they could fix it. Another one is don't let anyone in your household use your work computer. I say this from experience. Years ago, in a different situation, I had a lot of remote workers, and there was this one lady who would let her daughter play with her laptop, and it was connected to the network. I think at the time my daughter was 5, but she clicked on something. I don't really remember what it was now, but it was malware, and it destroyed, I think, 2 servers and most of her data, and it was unrecoverable. So it's important to, I would recommend not letting anyone use your work computer, just like you would do if you were at work, right? Kind of adopt that same philosophy. And when you're done with it at night, I would even go as far as even powering it down and shutting it off. And this way, every morning when you start it up again, you get a fresh start, and you're good to go. And it wasn't on all night and wasn't sitting on your network all night. So you reduce your risk in that regard.
Can I interject a question really quick?
Sure.
We got some questions previously, and it actually kind of piggybacks on what you were just talking about, with employees thinking that company-issued laptops are safer because they have an IT department and then their personal laptops. And so a lot of employees are using their work equipment for personal business, like taxes and purchases online. Should that be discouraged, or is that a benefit?
So I would agree that in most cases that the company issued laptop, organization issued laptop is probably more secure and more safe to use, right? I don't know that I would recommend using it to do your taxes or things like that. It would really depend on the organization's acceptable use policy. Some organizations will allow that to some degree. I've been in organizations where we weren't able to do anything on our laptops except work for the organization. Other organizations we were allowed to surf the web, right? Other organizations we were allowed to surf the web and not go to social media. So it really depends on that organization's acceptable use policies. But I would say that that's more of your private information that you have, especially taxes. I would almost do that on my own machine, and not do that on the organizational machine.
Yeah.
That would be my recommendation.
Sounds like best practice. Follow your organization's policy. Also make sure your personal IT is secure. So work on that.
Right.
That's definitely something to work on. Sorry, I kind of interrupted you. So
No, you're fine. You're fine. The last thing I wanted to touch on goes back to password. So, and I think everyone knows this, but just my password speech wouldn't be complete if I didn't say it. So never, ever, ever, ever write, share, or email passwords. I think email, sometimes we get a little too secure, especially in our organization, with some of the information we send through that. And passwords should not be one of them. For your passwords, if you have a lot of them, like many of us do today, and you have a hard time remembering them, like many of us do, including myself, I would recommend using a good password manager, like a LastPass or something like that, to manage these passwords. And your organization may already have that. You may already be using that. But that's also, keep in mind, that's something that you can also use in your personal life. I think the LastPass version, I think they offer a free version of that. So you could populate all your passwords. I see a lot of people have spreadsheets, and they'll put these spreadsheets on the desktop of the computer they're using. It's not really secure. And over and above that, if something happens to that machine, there goes all your passwords, right? So then they'll go write it down someplace else. But that would be the other recommendation. And I think that, you take all these recommendations and you practice this good cyber hygiene, and, I think you'll improve your security posture for yourself and your organization. I think IT will be very happy. And by working together, we could all keep our organization safe from cyber attack. And I think we had a few more questions. Brandy, all right?
Yeah, so that's your contact information. But yeah, we did have a couple of other questions that have come in through chat as well. I'm going to leave that up just a little bit longer so that people have your information. But a couple other questions that we've gotten were about antivirus protections and anti-malware protections. I guess didn't quite get it was just a statement rather, sorry. Many people never change their home router password from the generic, and you sort of touched on this briefly, or about the importance of using a long password, long and strong. So is there a danger to that? Do they pose a danger with corporate networks if you're at home using your unprotected Wi-Fi?
Yeah, absolutely. So let's say we went to Best Buy today, we bought a router, we come home, we hook it up, and we just use it like that. So that would have the default username and password. There are actually websites that the criminals go to that they're able to look up the type of router you have, and it shows what that default username and password would have been when it left the factory. So they take that information and they start scanning the internet for these types of devices. Once they find that, they're into your home network, and you would never know. You may say one day, my computer's running really slow, or you had this weird stuff happen. Over and above that, you're not going to really, not unless they do something really obvious that you would know about this, right? So the recommendation there is whenever you get any type of computing device, right? A home router, or anything that's going to connect to your network, even a Roku, anything like that, change the default password. So some of these devices, you can't change the actual username. Like, let's say the username is admin, right? You may not be able to change that, but you could certainly change that password. And right there is you're adding a layer of protection. So it's little things like that, these long passwords, changing the defaults, right? You want to look at it, at your security as an onion, right? Onion has many layers, and the more layers that you increase, the harder it gets, and then they're not going to waste time. They're going to move on in most cases, right? That's the expectation.
Yeah. So I'm about to unlock everyone's unmute people so we can have a discussion. But we had a couple others that came through during the presentation. Where's the one that I was just going to look? So how do you distinguish between a safe update versus phishing? Just some other telltale things to look for quickly.
A safe update?
Yeah, versus a phishing attempt, I think, if you get
Okay.
like an email, like one of them.
So I think on that one slide, we saw that Office 365,
Yeah.
right, type of thing. So typically, again, depending on your organization, right, typically those won't be sent out telling you that you need to update a password or something like that from IT. IT typically does not send those things out. Also, look at the sender's email address. The sender's email address probably is not going to match what you would expect. And then, again, trust but verify, right? Don't delete it immediately. Call IT. So at Chapel Hill, what we do with that, and this, we all have to understand, this is a culture change for everyone, right? Having to deal with this type of security and having to always be cautious of what we're doing in email. Years ago, it wasn't as bad, right? We used to get spam, and it was more of an annoyance than anything else. But today, it's become monetized, right? Weaponized, and it could really do, millions of dollars of damage to a municipality, just one little click. So we really need to scrutinize it and look at misspellings, return addresses. What is the email asking me to do? Should I do that, or maybe should I report it? So like I was saying in Chapel Hill, what we do, a lot of our users report it to IT, and then we were able to look at that, determine what it is, and then we were able also to see who else may have gotten that same email. And a lot of times 30, 40, 50 people got that same email about this invoice that needs to be paid, and we block it immediately. So those are the type of proactive things that we need to be doing and thinking about or working towards to increase that security posture.
All right. I'm going to ask one more question, and then I'm going to unmute people, and we've got a lot of questions. So we're definitely going to be following up, and we can send replies to people after this, because we are going to wrap up in about 15 minutes, but we still have 15 minutes left to talk. But how does the town of Chapel Hill, how do you educate your employees about these?
That's a great question.
It is. I was like,
So I want to say it was maybe about a year and a half ago, we started our security awareness training program. And our security awareness training program actually came bundled with our cyber insurance that we have. So it was I don't want to say no cost, right? But it was lower cost than if we had went out and bought the security awareness training platform. So I began to roll that out department by department, and with a basic set of cyber fundamentals, right? Phishing, passwords, things like that. So we've been doing that now for about a year and a half. We have over 500 employees trained. And recently we also started training on PCI. And I don't know, and if you don't know what PCI is a standard for credit card security. So any of our employees that are handling credit cards will also go through this security awareness training for credit card handling. That helps us to maintain compliance for the town. So we actually use that on the same platform. But if your organization doesn't employ security awareness training now, it's something that you really should invest in, because recently, well, it was about maybe 5 months ago, we thwarted a ransomware attack at the town, and the only reason why it was thwarted, one of the reasons why, it was like the employee did not do what the email asked and caught himself after he had clicked something and then shut the machine down. And then he told me later on that he would not have known to do that if he did not take the security awareness training that we provided, which made me feel great, because that right there, I mean, paid off in dividends just to have him say that. So it really is something, a lot of this stuff's education, like what to look for, how do we not get tricked, right? And it's really knowing what to look for, knowing to spot the good from the bad. So it's definitely worth the price.
And if I can add to that, I work with the town of Chapel Hill and work with Robert. Although a lot of our town employees are very technology savvy, our IT department understands that not all of us, especially, someone like me, really gets it, because we just weren't raised in that era. And it's a beautiful thing, because they will send out an email saying, this morning we saw a little something funny, and don't open this email if you get it. So in other words, they don't assume that everybody's technology savvy. They kind of write the script for the people that aren't. And, everybody else, I guess, kind of has to get over it. But I'm always so grateful for that.
Right. Now, that's a good point, Len. And, our IT team at the town of Chapel Hill, I mean, we're blessed to have a great team. We have really highly qualified individuals who do a great job. The email that Len's talking about is I send an advisory. So when we see something come out, like I had just spoken about that one email that actually touched 40 or 50 different people. So when we see that email come out that may be an issue, we get out in front of it, and I create an advisory. I take a screenshot of that email, put it in there, and then I send it out to everyone. This way, if they see it, they know not to click on it. And but again, all this is a culture change. Going back to that, it's the training. Having doing the advisories, constant beating the security drum. and raising that awareness. The awareness is what's going to increase your security posture. We could put all the devices we want. We could go out and we could spend, you know, tens of thousands of dollars on this stuff. But if we're not educating our staff on, you know, what we should and shouldn't do, you know, we could run into problems. So I think education plays a very big part in it.
Awesome. We've had a lot of good questions come in the chat. So Shelley actually asked one and thought that everyone could benefit from hearing from that.
Sure. Can you hear me okay?
Yep.
Okay. Rob, thanks for doing this. I had one quick question, and I'm a little scared of your answer, to be honest with you. I work with the TDM program, and we do a lot of information sharing and collaboration, and I don't have 365. I hope that's correct for the IT folks that are on this call too. So we use Google spreadsheets and Google Docs and Google Drive to share information. It's not sensitive information, it's more just collaborative brainstorming sort of stuff. So what's your idea or feedback on that?
So on Google's platform, Google is, I mean, they're not the most secure that's out there. So if you're just using it for collaboration and there's no sensitive data, you have to ask yourself, what would be the impact if this data got released, right? What would be the impact to me, to my organization? If the answer is none, I think then you would be fine using something like Google. If the answer is, you know, not fine, then I would probably look for a different method in order to share that information. But it sounds like to me, from what I'm hearing, is that it's probably fine based on, you know, no PI, no personal identifiable information or nothing that is of a confidential nature.
Great, thanks.
So let's see, we had another question come in from about, is there any software that you would recommend that can prevent ransomware on a remote laptop from infecting the network?
Not that could prevent, but could probably mitigate, right? So that's going to be really your antivirus programs that's going to be able to do that. But again, nothing is there is no silver bullet. So these guys and girls, these criminals that write this code, a lot of them know how to circumvent the antivirus engines that are out there. So it's just, you know, if they're able to do that, it's going to get through, right? So it's almost like, you know, I always use the analogy of, you know, someone knocks at your door. We don't really open that door until we look through the peephole, say, you know, who is that, right? And that's the same thing with the vectors that they're coming through. The number one vector that they're going to come through, remember, it's going to be email. So treat that as your front door. Before you click, think first and say, well, you know, does this look like something I should click on? Or, you know, do I know this person? Or, hey, I know this person, but why did they send this to me? So if you do that and you combine that with your security controls that your organization has given you and your antivirus, your risk is still there, but you're not as a high risk as you would be if you just, you know, clicked and didn't even think about it. That's where the problem comes, is when people get, you know, tricked and they click and they carry through. Some of these are multiple step attacks where you'll click and then they'll want you to open this and then they want you to put passwords. And people do that, not realizing that they're actually about to get compromised.
Nice. I've had this question a couple times. I've seen it pop up, and it's just very simple. It's so you open an email, like you just get it and you click on it, and then you recognize it right away that there's something weird about this. If you close it, if you just like shut down your computer, is that enough to end the threat? Like what are the steps that you would advise for that? Like throw the whole computer out.
Yeah, that's another good question. So here's what would happen in some cases. Some cases we'll get that bad thing that comes to us. You didn't have enough coffee, we click on it. Sometimes nothing happens. And you'll sit there and you'll click a few times, nothing happens. So what's going to be the next step we do? We move on, right? We move on to doing something else. But meanwhile, something did happen on the back end that we don't see. We don't see it, and maybe our antivirus didn't see it, but now that criminal now has a backdoor into your machine. So that's the one thing that can happen. But let us suppose, in your example, let us suppose that we do see it. We do see, so like, I think we all seen like a box pop up and disappear real quick on our desktops, right? That's typically what you'll see. If you see something like that, and then you realize that that email just didn't look right, take the network cable that's plugged into the wall and just disconnect the machine. You don't have to really power it down. Just take it off the network, or even if it's your home network, disconnect it. If it's wireless, then you may want to shut it down.
For how long?
And what I would do, my next step would be to contact IT and let IT check it out from there. So they can make the decision, you know, did you click on something bad and now that bad thing is in your computer, or is it just, you know, nothing to be concerned about? They can make that determination. But the important thing is that you now got that isolated. You're taking it off the network. It can't go over your VPN, or it can't affect anything else. So that would be, that's what we try to do at the town when anything like that happens. We immediately take that machine offline.
Now, does like the read panel in applications like Outlook, does that count as opening an email? Like if you just see a preview of the email?
Typically, no. Typically, there'll be, what they'll include will be a link or an image or a attachment. Those are the three things, because what they need you to either go someplace or some kind of code needs to run. So with the preview panel, just by looking at it, typically we don't see anything happening with that. I mean, there are attacks that I've heard about, but they're not really common that can be executed with the preview pane, but we don't typically see much of those. Most of the time is an attachment, a link, or even an image.
All right. Just looking through the chat. I got a question from Ian that says, are VPNs worthwhile?
VPNs are worthwhile. So VPN will keep your traffic safe. It'll give you a secure connection into your network. Basically what a VPN is, it just sets up a encrypted tunnel. So think of it as a tunnel from your machine, your laptop, right into your network at work, and it's completely encrypted. So anything that's going over that tunnel is all encrypted. No one can see it that's on the regular internet. That's the good thing. Bad thing is that if the criminal is able to compromise your machine, then they could go through that tunnel just like you can. So that's why we want to keep our machines safe and, you know, up to date and good passwords and stuff like that. You know, so VPN's absolutely a good thing. A lot of people even use them on their personal computers just to surf the internet. This way their traffic is encrypted and they don't have to worry about privacy issues on what sites they're going to, things like that. So yeah, that's been very popular. There's some of them, I think, online. You see the commercials all the time from them. I think they're like $5 a month or something like that. So that's an option if you want to use for your personal machine, also to bolster your security.
Great. So we are about 2 minutes away from the end. I got another question from Brad that was there any software that you would recommend that can that commit ransomware on a remote laptop from infecting the network? So that's just, is that going to be, yeah.
No, there's no specific software that'll do that. Again, it goes back to that antivirus or anti-malware applications. But if you're using your organization's issued machine, you should have all those protections in place. So you should be, you know, protected, right, to a certain degree. But again, practice that cyber hygiene, and, you know, between your good cyber hygiene practices, your tools, your antivirus, it should be okay. Just, and again, remember, don't click on anything.
All right. So I'm going to ask one more question because this one hits home for me because I use my cell phone a lot. Are there any risks for checking work emails on my personal cell phone, like especially because I've got like the FaceTime and you know, all the fancy stuff.
Well, yeah, there is actually. So let's assume we have I'll use an iPhone for an example. It could be an Android too, right? And we get I think most of us get our email on there, or even a text even, let's say. And we hit that link and we open something up, and now our phone gets compromised. We probably would not know as we go through our normal day, but what do we do sometimes when our battery is low with this? Or if we need to transfer pictures to this, where do we connect this to? Our computer. So there are versions of malware that look for that. So if my phone's affected, it's working fine, I want to transfer some pictures of my kids to my machine, or maybe my battery's low, I plug this into my computer, and now that malware goes from my phone to my computer. And now my computer and my phone are both compromised. And then from there, they'll carry on the rest of their attack, whether that be ransomware, stealing information from your organization. It could be any number of things, but there's definitely a concern. They do make antivirus packages for cell phones, but a lot of organizations also have mobile device management security tools that monitor phones and things like that against threats. That may be something you should ask your organizations if they do have such a tool, and they might. It depends. We have something called AirWatch for the town. And that's what that is.
So before Robert leaves us, Brandy, I'd love for him to tell us his most exciting Mission Impossible type story.
My most exciting, I don't know that I have a most exciting one. In terms of, tell me more, give me more on that one.
I just love anything that's Mission Impossible related or Born Identity or any of that stuff. I was just curious.
I could tell you many years ago, this is probably around 2005. There's an organization with the FBI called InfoGuard. I don't know if you guys have ever heard of that. So InfoGuard is a consortium of different sectors, public sectors, and the FBI. And I had just moved to North Carolina then in 2004, and had joined InfoGuard. And they had their first ever hacking contest, right? So all members were able to sign up and compete and hack these 2 servers that were there. And I don't think there was a prize. I don't remember exactly. So we had members of FBI, we had CIA, Secret Service, and I think NSA there competing. So I actually won that contest and was able to compromise the Windows server and the Unix server in 28 minutes. You had to steal a file, and on each file it was actually a little picture of the Matrix, and that was funny. So after that, the chief police then at that time told me that he was glad that I was on their team and no one else's. So that was one of the exciting ones for me. So that was pretty cool.
Well, that's pretty cool. Thank you so much for presenting for us today, Robert. And thank everybody for joining us. I don't want to hold you guys any longer because it's 33 minutes after, but I'd want to keep your eye out for an email from us. I will be sending out a survey, and in the survey, the main point of it is to just let us know what we did well, what we can do better, so that we can continue this this series, and we can bring you topics that you are interested in, topics that you want to learn more about, just to be a better service to our community. So keep a lookout for that, and we will also send you a link to this video once that becomes available, and you can share it with anyone that you feel would benefit from the information that we've discussed. So thank you and have a good evening. Well, afternoon. Sorry.
Bye, everybody. Thanks again.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Dun 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 dun
Have a
dun
good afternoon.
dun dun doodle doo.